The most widely published book in human history reveals that we are created in the image of God. Throughout our human journey, each encounter is an opportunity to see the shared humanity in ourselves and others. Regardless of one's views on religion, each experience and each story weaves us together towards a common path. A path of transformation, a process of growth and understanding, a recognition that, at our core, we share a common destiny. What does the search for truth really mean in our lives? How can we find a sense of unity in a world so diverse and divided? As we reflect on these questions, we start to uncover a fundamental connection that binds us all beyond our differences. Welcome to Created in the Image of God, Building Vibrant Communities, with our host, Wade Franson. Tonight's episode is Building a Kingdom Business Without the Grind.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Creating the Image of God. I was just having a wonderful conversation with our guest in the studio. We were diving into certain topics related to his show, and we came right up against that 8 o'clock time and almost blew it. Almost kept talking in the studio without going live, and that's because we've got a show tonight of huge relevance in this country, in the United States of America, which is a model for many things in the world, but certain things in particular that we're going to get into tonight. Our guest tonight, his name is Brian Adamson, and he is a kingdom business coach, and he helps faith-driven organizations, faith-driven coaches, faith-driven individuals, and experts scale their businesses in economic terms. But he does so in what he'll call God's way, right? Based on the word of God and not the grind's way. He's the co-founder of Purpose to Profits, and he's the host of the Believers N Biz podcast. He blends proven business systems with biblical principles, so entrepreneurs can grow without sacrificing their faith, family, or sanity. Let's welcome Brian Adamson to the studio.
Hello, Wade. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure. And the timing of this particular show is really fascinating. When we started talking about this, it was right before Soup Media, who's behind this podcast, was invited to help pull together speakers for a business conference that's going to happen in Orlando, Florida. That business conference is called Better Business, Better World. So a little plug for that right up front. We'll start showing some videos about that conference. But what this conference seeks to do is thread the needle that you do on an individual level, right? Which is to help businesses fulfill their stated purpose on paper, their fiduciary responsibility, which is to maximize value for shareholders, i.e. the bottom line and profits. But on the other hand, you have this whole camp, as we were talking about, that believes that that's somehow evil, right? That these big corporations are destroying the planet. And not to deny that some of them and some of their business practices might actually be harmful. But the basic principle of business is right and just and good, and in fact, it's throughout the Bible. So I'm really grateful to have you here this evening to help explain that from your perspective and show how you approach this issue at the individual level to the individuals and the experts.
Yeah, 100%, Wade. I've yet to see any ministry that didn't survive without money. Right. And so if God is all about salvation and bringing people into the kingdom, and it's required to have finances to do so, then I think he probably put some principles in the scripture that would allow us to go out and be productive in the way of economics in order to further his narrative and push the kingdom and advance the kingdom forward.
Well, amen to that. And I often try to explain my perspective that I spend a lot of time in the book of Genesis, right? I love that book. It's just so rich, and all the seeds are there of all the things that we have. But one view that I have of the book of Genesis is that it simply explains there's a divine teacher, God himself. There's a curriculum. Of course, he sends messengers, prophets. He sent Jesus. throughout history. And, Hebrews talks about that in various and diverse ways throughout time. God has sent messengers and prophets. So you have the divine curriculum, but the creation itself is material, and it's a laboratory. It's a laboratory where we apply the curriculum. The problem is we go out into the laboratory without the curriculum, and that's when we blow things up.
100%. I often say, specifically for believers, I think many of them end up over spiritualized and under monetized because they
Yeah.
go out into the laboratory without the curriculum. And then all of a sudden, money becomes a miracle. And that was never God's intention. I mean, He gave us too many principles that if we apply those things, money should be a byproduct of operating those principles, not a byproduct of a mercy prayer and a miracle prayer every time we need some.
Yeah. What does it do for our children if every time they come and ask daddy, hey, can I have, $20? We're like, sure, but we never make them work for it.
Correct.
The children will we raise.
Correct. 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 Yeah, I'm super excited about this conversation tonight, Wade. This is my jam. I can talk about
Yeah.
this until I fall asleep.
Wonderful. Well, what we like to do on this show, as we talked about some weeks ago, we didn't have time to go over this again in the pre-show because we were talking about other things, but to get to know the real you. So what's your creation story? Who were your parents? What were the circumstances that formed and shaped you as a young boy before you took conscious thought and became who you are today? So tell us your backstory.
Yeah, I tried about everything I could to mess my life up early on, Wade. Now that I look back on it, by God's grace, I had two amazing parents. Hardworking parents. My dad was a firefighter for the city of Detroit for 30 years. My mom was a cashier at a grocery store for 25 years, and so grew up two-parent household. Work ethic was always, paramount. Um, but I always had this thing inside of me, right? Which was that entrepreneurial spirit, and I didn't have um, any examples of that, from um, a foundational perspective, right? And so I grew up on the west side of Detroit, in an urban environment, and the only semblance of entrepreneurship that I saw and had context to was those guys in the streets hustling. And so I found myself, my senior year in high school, selling weed, caught a case, and found out what consequences meant real quick. I was looking at a 4 to 10 year felony my senior year in high school, while on my way to a full ride scholarship, academic scholarship in college. And
Wow.
yeah, as one could imagine, I was a bit distracted when I got up there, still not knowing that my freedom was in question. Met my now wife, then girlfriend, got her pregnant at 18, kicked out the house during the same time, and life got real fast for me. And by God's grace,
I want to pause you there just for a minute
yeah,
because that is such a good example of what we were talking about, right? You saw certain opportunities and you saw certain principles, but you went out without the wisdom or the knowledge on how to get there, right? And you
absolutely,
came very close to making it impossible for you to later achieve those goals because you were heedlessly pursuing it your own way against the laws of God and the laws of society.
absolutely, absolutely. Didn't have the right foundation, the resources, or the wisdom to steward that thing that got put inside of me. The desire was put inside of me. My way of pursuing it was just off. And
Yeah. So that experience obviously molded and shaped your desire to figure this out.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And by His grace, during that same time, although I grew up in the church, I never really understood what all of that meant, right? I understood and believed in God, but I didn't understand what having a relationship with Christ meant. I didn't understand how He could come into your life and completely change your life until I needed that to happen in my life. And during that same time where I was fighting all of these things, found my way into the church and gave my life to Christ, got baptized at 18. And although I can't fully articulate what happened, I can tell you the fruit of what happened was got on the other side of that case, fully expunged from my record, got rematriculated back into college where I graduated summa cum laude. Been with my wife now for 24 years, been married 19. Our daughter just recently got married. Went back up into college and ended up starting a real estate career in tandem with getting my degree. And he has fundamentally changed my life from Jesus coming into my life. And, Romans 8:28 says that he works all things together for the good of those who love him and called according to his purpose. And he's true to his word. To your point, he's repurposed even the things that I did in sin that still have worked out to my benefit, because he made them training grounds for things that I would later do that I had no idea. And so, forever grateful to now be in this position at 42 years of age with a soon to be 7-month-old granddaughter, and now being able to, I've helped people in over 20 countries change their businesses, their outlooks, and being able to implement the word of God to produce fruit in their lives. And so just forever grateful for that.
I want to pause here for a moment and sit with your particular situation, your particular circumstances, your particular learning, because there's a lot of similarity. When I was 19, I was in a high-speed chase up in Alaska with the state troopers in pursuit, and I ran off the road at 100 miles an hour and ended up in jail. And I was actually not at that moment doing anything wrong other than speeding and trying to escape the police and driving recklessly. I mean, those are a lot. That's enough.
Mm-hmm.
But the only reason I was doing this was I was late for work, and I already had on my license that if I got pulled over one more time, I was going to lose it. So I'm like, what the heck? Might as well go for it, which was stupid. And I almost killed myself, came very close. But very similarly, there was a lot of stuff going on, and I, with God's help, found a path, and with God's mercy and blessing, got out of it. But when I say that, I'm just going to be very open and transparent here. I'm saying that as a white person, and there is a lot of discussion and narrative around in this country that, well, yeah, that worked for you because you're white, but God the Father doesn't prefer one race over the other, right? And he did for you what he did for me when each of us turned to him. And so I want to sit with that for a minute, because I don't usually ever get to share this perspective, because I would not presume to say these things, except that you're now here. So I'm kind of offering you to see if you agree with me or not, because that perspective that God is the one who will answer your prayers. God is the one that will help you through whatever circumstances and whatever challenges you face. And it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter your identity, your characteristics. None of that matters. God is no respecter of persons.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that God would love you at the level that you choose. And if you fully surrender to him, everything that he has said in his word will make itself manifest in your life. In the book of James, it talks about not having favorites, right? God is not a God of favoritism. He's a God of, when you live according to my will and my purpose for your life, it will produce the fruit that I intended for it to produce before you were even created. And while culturally speaking, there are a lot of issues with race. However, in the kingdom, there is no such thing, not from my own experience. And I find that for those who really lean into what God has called them to do, produce fruit in ways that people who don't will not.
Well, I think too, one of the reasons I'm opening up this piece of the discussion here is because there are many things that erode our faith, right? When Peter was asked to come to Jesus and walked on the water and looked around at the water and the waves, he started to sink, right?
Correct.
Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? Daniel in the lion's den, those three men in the fiery furnace. Society was against them. and they stood steadfast in the face of a lion, in the face of the fiery furnace. The problems and challenges that we all face, some more than others, and there's no denying some people have more stacked against them than others in all kinds of ways,
Sure.
including based on race, even today. There may be other advantages, frankly, as well. But whatever the challenges are, we cannot think that God is not strong enough to overcome those challenges. The minute we start thinking, well, I can't succeed because of this, that, and the other thing, in this context, that's actually a lack of faith
It is.
that will keep us.
And I would say coupled with the lack of faith would be willfully sinning, coupled with disobedience. And for anybody, no matter what your race, creed, color, background is, if you make a habit of doing those things, it will not go well for you because you're going against the will of God. There's no wisdom in that. And yeah, I couldn't agree with you more as it pertains to that way. It's I think for many people, they have to ask themselves, do I really exude a life that puts him first? Or is it my agenda and God? And I think if many of us are honest with ourselves, it's probably a more than daily check-in that needs to occur where we're asking ourselves, are we really putting him first? Or has he turned into our consultant? Hey, let me just run this by you. Something I was thinking about. Just wanted to get your sign off before I go execute. And we wonder why this cycle just continues to happen. We seem like we have fruit for a while, but then there's toil with it. Then there's no peace with it. And it's because we're pushing our agenda and we're just asking him to co-sign it.
Yep.
Right. And so we got to be careful. While he did create us in his image to be creative, that we still understand that that has to be fully surrendered and yielded to what his will is for our lives.
So getting back to your story, these were lessons that you were learning 16, 17, 18. When you were baptized, when you accepted, Jesus, God into your life more fully. I forget the details or circumstances, if it was baptism at that time.
It was.
Yeah. So, was there an immediate change? Was there, 2 steps forward, 1 step back? Tell us a little bit about the challenge
not
that you
even
had at
close.
that moment.
Not even close way. We may lose some viewers on this one, okay? But you asked. So
Yeah.
so I never forget. So me and my best friend at the time both got baptized the same day. And believe it or not, we went to Windsor, Ontario, because that's in Detroit. That's a 7-minute drive through the turnpike to get to Canada. And we went there to celebrate and party that night. Okay. So we, this sanctification thing takes some time. I didn't, right. So I think
We were more alike. We were more alike than I even thought. Because guess what? The high-speed chase was after I was baptized.
okay. So
Yeah. But that's where things really got serious.
yeah. I mean, sanctification is a process, right? And consecration, all those things. And discipleship is important, which is why I take it so serious that I get to essentially disciple business leaders in the marketplace, right? And but yeah, at that time I didn't know what any of these words, sanctification, discipleship, none of that. I knew at minimum I shouldn't go to hell anymore. And I felt like that was a place I was heading if I didn't start making some changes.
Yeah. Nice. So you got a different roadmap, but you were still on the highway to hell. You hadn't really made the exit yet, right? So that was kind of me. Anyway, so
Yeah.
okay, so keep telling us that story. What happened next, and when did the penny drop, as they said in Germany? I lived there for
Yeah.
10 years.
So it's been hindsight being 2020, right? We understand things, we intellectually understand things looking forward, we get wisdom from looking backward. And I just think of just the reckless abandon that I had much of my time, in my 20s. And a lot of it, I got this saying that what you tune into, you turn into, right? And although I was making some changes internally, my external hadn't changed a lot. My friend group hadn't changed a lot. The things we did didn't change a lot. And so looking back on it, the way that I would categorize my walk for probably the first 15, 16, 17 years was a lukewarm Christian, if I'm being honest. I would repent and repeat, one of those things. And particularly just because, the enemy preys on ignorance. And although I was reading the Bible, I don't know that I was allowing it to read me in the way that I needed to. And it was more of a check in the box, going to church, checking the box. Not as if I wouldn't get things that were substantive, here and there that would really um, cause some revelation. But you have to be careful not to continuously quench the Holy Spirit. And I was doing that a lot, particularly through drinking and partying. And I like to say that I used to constantly have my Wi-Fi signal interrupted, right, where I would feel the presence of God, and then I would all of a sudden kind of feel that dissipate. And it was through my choices. I just didn't understand it that way. But God and his sovereignty and his patience and his love and his grace and his mercy allows us the time to develop. And what I've noticed, at least for me in my walk, has been the more revelation that I've gotten, the more wisdom that I've gotten, the more accountability that I've gotten. So things that seemingly I was getting away with at certain points in time, as he knew that I grew to know that these things were definitively bad, and I was still making a conscious choice to do them despite knowing they were bad, that the consequences that I felt as a result of that I was being held accountable to a different standard. And, it wasn't until I started to embody, 1 Corinthians 13:11. When I was a child, I thought as a child, I spoke as a child, I reasoned as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. January 6, 2019, I took my last drink. That was the start of that 1 Corinthians 13 and 11. And I started to really embody that. And the more that my life sounded less like scripture and looked more like it, everything fundamentally started to shift for me.
Yeah, those behavioral issues, those are they can be very much weights, and certainly alcohol and drugs. I mean, I was didn't mention that, but that was part of what I was doing too, 17, 18, 19, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It all goes along. I wasn't doing any of that when I was, in the high speed chase. In that moment, I wasn't,
Thank God.
thank God.
Yeah.
But the reason I did that is because I'd been just partying it up and being
hmm
stupid.
hmm hmm
The whole environment. So how then did you get into the business of business and
Right.
the Bible together? When did that transition come?
So when I got back into college the second time, took it a lot more serious, particularly because I had lost my scholarship and now I had to pay for it. So stakes were a little bit higher when I went back. And my junior year, while there, it just so happened to be a friend of a friend back in Detroit that exposed me to real estate investing. So this was 2006, before the market contraction. Didn't know what any of that meant back then. He allowed me to invest
Yeah.
one of my refund checks into one of his deals. So I was a private investor in one of his deals, essentially, right? Looking
Yeah.
back on it, giving it language. And
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute. I invested 7 grand, got a 25% return. Legit. Oh, sign me up. Like I didn't know I could do this. And so
Yeah.
the bug bit me. And so while I was finishing my degree, which I graduated in May of 2007, during that same time, I had bought 2 rental properties, and while still in college. And then shortly after that, we broke ground on a new construction home for us to move into once we finished college. And then 2008 happened out of nowhere. Boom. Upside down, short sales, deed in lieu of foreclosures, all the things. And
I
but
was working for Countrywide at that time.
wow.
Yeah, I was doing strategic planning. Rode up and down the elevator with Angela Mazzillo, who was the CEO. He ended up on the cover of Time Magazine January 2009 issue as the number one cause of that meltdown. I could tell you stories that they didn't even share in The Big Short. But anyway, yeah, so I know that world really well. Go ahead.
We definitely got to talk about that offline.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but the interesting thing was, while it was painful, I wasn't jaded yet because I was so new to this thing. So I'm like, wait a minute, I don't know what just happened, but that $147,000 house I could get for 28 grand now.
Right.
So my perspective was different. I'm like, yeah, let me get past this short sale stuff. I'm gonna go buy some more property while it's dirt
Right.
cheap.
Yeah.
So 2008 to 10, that's what I did. I went when I left college. I worked for a plastics company, and so I was just building my real estate portfolio and doing this corporate thing at the same time, with the hopes of just being able to be a full-time entrepreneur. That thing was still in me. I just hadn't figured out quite how to get it out yet. And so eventually, I built up pretty decent portfolio, bought a couple dozen properties, and then I finally got mentorship and really learn how to leverage capital, go out and do fix and flips, and did that for many years, and then got into commercial multifamily. I owned over 100 doors at one point, buying apartments. And during this time, though, in 2018, um, I had some people I was just helping. Like, I was a part of this real estate group. People that spent six figures on this coaching and didn't even have a deal. It was just baffling to me. And
Yeah.
so I had excess deal flow. So I would kind of wholesale these deals to these people and help them out with the management of the project. And I did that for these young guys in San Diego. Never had met them. Acquired the property. I'm sorry, wholesaled them the property, and then my team managed the project, did the construction. My realtor listed it, flipped the property, sent them a check for 30 grand. Never met these folks in person. And so they like, do you know what you just did for us? I'm like, that stuff I do every day. I mean, just, I made a few grand in the process. I'm fine with that. And so they encouraged me to get online and like start coaching people. And so in 2018, May of 2018, we did exactly that. And within the first 8 months, we did over $1 million in that business. Shortly after that, I left corporate. So I stopped drinking January 2019. I left corporate February 2019 and became a full-time entrepreneur. Finally had figured out how to go and do that thing that I've been wanting to do since I was 12 years old at 35. And it grew. We had clients in Denmark, Japan, Afghanistan, all throughout the world. Our methodology was teaching people how to invest remotely. And so that infrastructure allowed international investors to invest domestically without having to physically be there. And after growing that coaching business 6, 7 years, I didn't realize that God was teaching me how to be a business coach during that time, because I had a lot of success in doing what many people desire to do. And some connections along the way without belaboring the story. And the bottom line is, since November of 2024, I walked away from the real estate coaching, sold 90% of my portfolio to focus specifically on teaching business coaches and consultants how to grow multiple 6 and 7 figure businesses using God's principles.
Well, I think that's a great segue into the quick video that we're going to show. And when we come back, I want to dive into the nuts and bolts, materially and spiritually, of how you pull this together and get into the meat of this, the transformative power of understanding what we were talking about between the divine curriculum, God's
Mhm.
teaching, his law, and the laboratory, the world in which we live, in which we get to practice and put those things into practice for our benefit and the benefit of others. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more of Brian Adamson on Created in the Image of God.
Hey, real quick, if you are a coach, consultant, business owner, aspiring business owner, you want to start making more money online. Maybe you stuck at that 5, 10, 20K a month ceiling. Maybe some of you are still in ideation mode. You're just like, I got to get out of this job. I know I got something in me I need to give birth to, but you can't quite figure out how to either scale it or start it. Make sure you come to our Purpose to Profits Challenge. My partner David and I are going to be showing you how to successfully grow your business online, helping you with content creation, helping you with marketing strategies, helping you with sales, fulfillment, the whole nine, okay? Showing you our exact systems on how we went from not making 6 figures a year, not multiple 6 figures a year, but 6 figures a month, and even sometimes 6 figures in a day. If that sounds like you, sign up for the challenge. General admission is only $17. All right, $47 for the VIP. If you want to spend 1 hour exclusively with David and I each day and ask all of your questions specifically, Make sure you get the VIP ticket. We will see you there.
Welcome back to Creating the Image of God with the man who you just saw in that video, Brian Adamson. So tell us a little bit about the Purpose to Profits. You shared with me previously it's something you do every 6 weeks, and there's one coming up this weekend.
Yeah, it's a really cool event. Whether somebody was like me and they got something in them that they need to give birth to, or they're already out there running a coaching and consulting business and they're tired of the one-to-one model. Their income may be scaling, but so is their time, right? Because they're doing it one-to-one versus one-to-many. And so essentially we just show them how we set up our marketing and sales channels, as well as our fulfillment channels, to do everything one-to-many. We got clients that's, done 7 figures in 10 months, working 12 to 15 hours a week. And so we teach them how to create irresistible high ticket offers, how to set up their webinars the right way, how to leverage challenges, how to buy back their time, and essentially 4 different pathways to 6-figure months. So it's a really, really cool, in-depth, hearty event that we love doing.
Well, I want to throw out a parable here, or an analogy, not remotely to make you into some kind of Jesus, but we're going to talk about Jesus for a moment here. When he came and told, was it Peter and his brother who'd been fishing all night without any success? And he came and said, throw the net out on the other side of the boat.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly they pull up so much fish that the boat almost sinks.
Yeah.
And then he says, come, I'll make you fishers of men. But there's this moment, their job was fishermen. And, not to read too much into that piece of it, but, I've come that you might have life and life more abundantly.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, guys, this is easy if you listen to me and do it my way. And they were thinking, what an idiot. I saw this on this, there's this great series called The Chosen. I don't know if you've ever seen it. I love,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
love The Chosen, right?
Yeah.
And the way that they display it so realistically, so earthy, if you will. They're like, who is this idiot cast the net on the other side of the boat? Don't you know anything about water and fish? It's like, just do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. Just do it.
Yeah.
But it's not going to work. Just do it.
Yeah.
Right? And lo and behold, it's so easy when you're doing it in the right way for the right reasons. Now, again, we don't want to get into this magical, mystical, snap your fingers, God's going to do everything for you kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the moment was important to turn them around, to shock them out of their current situation. And I assume that this Purpose to Profits kind of approach is kind of that, waking people up, shaking them out of a whole bunch of thoughts and ideas of what's holding them back.
Yeah. I find one of the things most fascinating to me is I find that many of us have started businesses from here instead of from here. Right. So Jesus goes and he tells Simon Peter, Simon, the enemy's trying to sift you like wheat. But I've gone before the Father and prayed on your behalf. When you get on the other side, repent and go back and strengthen your brothers. My trials and tribulations in real estate, losing $500,000, prepared me to teach the people that God was going to call me to lead, to not have to make those investing mistakes. The $250,000 that I had to lose in marketing and dealing with marketing companies, building out my coaching business, afforded me the ability to go back and strengthen my brothers and help other coaches and consultants not have to endure the things that I had to endure. So a lot of times, God already gave us the foundation for what our businesses should be, and we go create something totally different that doesn't highlight our experiences or our gift mix, and then we just toil over the thing and say it's not working.
Yeah, if you hadn't had those experiences, you would be giving out advice that would actually not work for people, and you'd be harming them.
Correct. And we do it not maliciously, but people do it every day because they read books, they get intellectually savvy, but you don't have the wisdom of the experiences, though.
Yeah. So how do you integrate the spiritual teachings and the practical things? I mean, I hear you doing it in even your discussion now. You seamlessly bring in both sides, but how do you do that in like the purpose to profit and in your coaching?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, on day one, right in smack dab in the middle of introductions, I go, so just want to let everyone know that David and I teach from biblical principles. And the reason we do that is because it takes our opinion out of it. And it actually gives you an advantage because these principles happen to work for thousands of years and they'll continue to work for those as willing to work them. And so at the very same time, if the Bible is something that's offensive to you, not that we're pushing our spirituality on anybody, but if the Bible itself is offensive, we want to give you an opportunity to raise your hand and we'll give you your money back. We don't want you to wait till Friday and say you're offended. I start every single challenge out like that. And guess what, Wade? In over 3 years, nobody's ever left.
Yeah.
And we've had every religion there. I mean, we've had over 20 countries that we serve. And so, but people stay. And I think it's because I'm just upfront, right? It's Galatians 1:10. It's, if I were still worried about pleasing people, then why would I be a servant of Christ?
Yeah.
And so, again, when our life and our decisions and our posture looks like the Bible versus us just talking like the Bible, I think people have a certain respect for that, even if they don't necessarily align themselves with the same spirituality. So I just tell them up front that that's what it's going to be. And so there'll be no surprises throughout the course of the week. Interestingly enough, because, I'll talk about the importance of you can't get it right if you understand it wrong, right? And while in Luke 14:28, Jesus is talking to the disciples about counting the costs. Well, if you also look at there's wisdom in what he told them though. Suppose when you want to go out and build a tower, wouldn't you first sit down and count the costs? You wouldn't want to begin building a foundation, run out of money. People will ridicule you and say this person began to build and couldn't finish. Well, when that happens, what also happens is the students or the clients, well, they'll go back and do some homework. Well, what was that? What was that thing? Luke 14:28. And we've literally had people at our events later tell us in the week that they gave their life to Christ. They found salvation during the week, not from our doing, right? We're
Yeah.
just being responsible in what God has called us to do, which is to show people his principles in business through the Bible. But I just trust that the Holy Spirit would do the rest of the work for those that are interested. And so it's a beautiful thing. It's not Bible thumping in any kind of way. And it's legitimately not pushing our faith on anyone, but it's also being unapologetic about the things that we have adopted and practice in our day to day, and never taking the glory away from God because it's his principles. We just so happen to work them.
So let me flip the script on this part of the conversation and ask you a general question about society today.
Mhm.
Why do you think it is? And I don't really know the answer to this. There are probably multiple answers. I'm just curious how you view it. Why do you think it is that so many people today have this idea that business is evil, and even religious people would have the idea that people who are, focused on these materials things are somehow greedy, or, where do these ideas come from and why are they so attractive to so many people?
Well, it's twofold. One is in the church, Big C church. I think that there has been a narrative of wealth is wicked and poverty is piety. Somehow being poor is religious. I haven't figured out that yet as to where the Bible shows that, but I think a lot of people have been indoctrinated with this based on who stands in the pulpit to deliver the message. I really believe that that's a big part of it. The secondary part of it is for those who have the most means and influence, unless you're in the faith community, you wouldn't know about though. You wouldn't know that Craig Rochelle was behind YouVersion, right? You wouldn't. You don't know about um, Rick Warren if you're not in the faith community, right? So the only people that are promoted in society that we see winning happen to be oftentimes people that aren't believers. And you and I know this way. Money is not inherently evil, it's neutral. It's about who has it in their possession and what they do with it. So you got the polarizing non-believer always winning. So that particularly can come
Well,
off.
and some of them aren't even non-believers. They just don't lead with faith. They might be
That's true.
very devout and
That's
believers,
true.
and you just don't know it because that, they're not using that in that way for whatever reason.
That's true. That's true. But I would say the Gates, the Musk,
Yeah.
the Bezos, right? The polarizing ones that we know, many have come out and specifically said that they didn't have faith in Jesus, right? Um, and so I think people then draw a narrative of, if that's what money looks like,
Yeah.
then now I have this negative connotation with money. So I think the church is partly responsible, and then I think how polarizing certain figures are in society did the rest of the work.
Yeah. There's this really awesome quote, goes like this: with fire, we test the gold, and with gold, we test our servants. This is
Mm,
coming from a spiritual teacher,
mm,
right? Um, and I think when you take that on the surface, you can interpret that in a bunch of different ways. But what I've thought about is that pure refined gold is an amazing thing, right?
mhm.
So the gold being tested in fire, right, is a good thing. That's how you refine gold and make it pure. And it has amazing properties. And then on the flip side of that, the testing comes not just because you have it, but also if you don't have it. In fact, maybe the test is greater if you don't have it,
I
because
agree.
now you want it. You know what I mean?
I
And you
agree.
haven't earned it. You haven't earned it and you want it.
Or you earned it out of season.
Yes.
So I've been there, right? Made my first $1 million, the thing that I yearned to do my entire life, to only get there and be rich and miserable.
Yeah.
Why? Because the principles work for those who work them. If you put enough seed in the ground, you will reap a harvest.
Right.
But the quality of the harvest will be indicative of the quality of the seed. A seed will only reproduce after its own kind, right? And so I found myself in a season where God allowed me to have all the financial success, but then I was drinking just as much, if not more, was empty, because he allowed me to see, you thought that was your fulfillment when it's actually not. So now that we've gotten that out the way, are you ready to surrender so I could take you on this path of consecration and sanctification to really show you who I am, right? And that's been a journey, and I'm forever grateful for it. But it's just to show his principles will work for those who work them, right? And that's why money isn't inherently good or bad. It flows to the people that actually operate in those principles to gather it.
So, do you have a story or two of people that you've worked with, and how that has played out that you can share
For sure.
without changing any names to protect the innocent?
All right. So really cool story. And I just thought of him because he texted me just not long ago. One of our clients, and this is actually a really good story. No, it's better than what I thought. So in 2020, I hired this company to run my marketing for my real estate coaching program. And this was the first time of all these marketing companies that I was raped and pillaged by them back then, man. I mean, they just took my money in ways, my responsibility, but I'm telling you, I had a rough go at it. And he
Well,
was the
here's
first.
what I got to say about marketing is, in the corporate world, there's this saying, you may have heard it, that the chief marketing officer of a big corporation that has many $1 million budget says, yeah, I know we're wasting half of our marketing budget. I just can't tell which half. We need to do more testing to find out.
That sounds about right.
So somehow marketing folks can get away with wasting half the money. No one else can.
No one else on the planet gets away with that but them. And this guy was the most integrous until I found my partner, David, 3 years ago. And this is what he said, Wade, that forever changed me. He said, hey, I'm curious. I know you into that God thing, right? This is a conversation. I know you into that God thing.
Yeah.
What I want to know is, are you a real estate guy who's a Christian? Or are you a Christian that's a real estate guy? I said, Alex, nobody's ever asked me that, man. I'm a Christian that's a real estate guy. He was like, cool. So let's just double down on that in your marketing, like in your emails and your like. I don't think you should sidestep your faith. I think we should just make you the faith guy who happens to do real estate. And
Well,
fast,
let me say that really works because from discussions with you and how you roll, that's not just marketing hype with you.
that's correct. That it was legit. He saw the through line even from being on the outside, right? And fast forward, he reaches out to me late 2024, like right before we made the shift. And at this time, he was running a marketing agency, and he was basically working 60, 70 hours a week, making 10, 15 grand a month. Wasn't horrible money, but he had no quality of life. We had one of these challenges, Purpose to Profits, and he came to it. And not only did his faith change to where conversation shifted and praying, and I was going to church and I'm reading my Bible. Just subtly, he's not reporting the news. He's just telling me and I'm listening. I'm like, Alex wasn't talking like this 5 years ago. Like not even close. It was a matter of fact, just like quite the opposite. And so he comes into the program and we help him change everything. All this one-to-one stuff he was doing, we helped him implement the one-to-many. We got his margins right. We helped him solve a bigger problem so he could charge more money. And he goes out in his first 28 days, make $105,000. Okay. He went on to later make over 7 figures in 10 months. But this is the highlight of the story for me. I reach out to him to congratulate him on his 7-figure mark. And he texts me back and goes, hey, last year I heard that you read the Bible all the way through. Now that I got some more time and margin, I love to do that this year. Can you share what plan that you use? What did that teach me? It taught me a valuable lesson. Jesus fed the people before he fed the people.
Yep.
I will say that again. Jesus fed the people before he fed the people. We have to, as kingdompreneurs, stop trying to give everybody the Bible and meet the need of what they paid you for. And once you meet the need of what they paid you for, when you feed them, now they're more open to you feeding them. I got chills right now. That to me is just a glaring example of what kingdompreneurship should look like.
Amen. I gotta add a little anecdote to that. And the little kid who had the 3 loaves and fishes that Jesus took, he went home and told his mom, hey mom, guess what Jesus and I did today?
That's good. That's good, Wade.
My dad used to say a lot. He just passed away recently. I'm thinking about him a lot. He used to say, me and you, mostly you. One of my favorite sayings. So yeah, you're doing an amazing thing, and I'm so honored to have you on the show. We're going to go for a quick commercial break now. When we come back, I want to ask, where are you growing next? You've had these accomplishments. You've reached this plateau. You've made a shift here in the last couple of years. I want to hear what's next on the horizon for you, and so does the audience. We'll be right back with more of Bryan Adamson on Created in the Image of God.
Meet Dr. Lori Schessler, a licensed clinical Christian counselor, speaker, and author with over 25 years of ministry experience. She's the founder of New Leaf Christian Counseling and holds a doctorate in clinical Christian counseling, bringing both depth and compassion to the work she does. Dr. Lori specializes in temperament therapy, a personalized, biblically grounded approach that helps people understand their emotional design and heal from the inside out. Whether working with children or adults, she helps individuals uncover the root of their trauma, anxiety, or relational struggles, and guides them toward lasting transformation. Her voice is warm, grounded, and deeply insightful, perfect for conversations around faith, mental health, emotional resilience, and identity. As someone who bridges spiritual truth with practical tools for healing, Lori offers meaningful value to listeners seeking clarity, hope, and change. An inspiring and thoughtful presence, Dr. Lori brings the kind of depth that makes every conversation feel personal, purposeful, and full of grace. Contact her through the website newleafchristiancounseling.net.
Welcome back to Creating the Image of God with Brian Adamson. We've just been talking about his background, his work, how he integrates spiritual principles, the Bible, into helping people understand how to use the material world in a positive way for success and material benefits. So, Brian, we were just about to ask, where are you growing next? Given all that you've done, what's on the horizon for you now?
You're going to like this a lot, Wade, because we've been talking about it. And now I'm going to give an anatomy to what the through line has been to this conversation. So in March of this year, I'm at a challenge, and it's like day 5. So we do Q&A for an hour in VIP, and then we do the teaching thereafter. So it's like 6:47. There's 15 minutes left in VIP. And I'm sitting there, my partner David's answering a question. And for the first time ever, I asked myself, why am I here? Now I'm having this introspective out of body experience, and it's over 100 people here at this, and I'm starting. So when I snap out, I'm like, you cannot have this moment right now. Like the camera's on, people looking, you cannot do this right now. So I try to shake it off during the transition, and then I come back and I do the introduction, and it is not leaving me. So customary to having these events, I always go check in at the resort when it's done to decompress, refill, because I poured out all week. So in doing so, I felt the Holy Spirit tell me, write out a new vision. So I get the writing it out, write the vision, make it plain for they who read it can run with it. One of my business partners happened to be in town, and I said, Mark, you mind reading this? I said, it's fresh. I'm super vulnerable. I literally just penned this earlier today, but I just love for you knowing me, I love to get your perspective. He read it and he goes, why don't you create a curriculum for small groups in the church for business leaders? That's a good question, Mark. I'm gonna pray about that. Pray about it. Holy Spirit, lighten me up. So same is true. Pen to paper again. I look up in 2 weeks and I've wrote 12 weeks of curriculum for discipleship plan for business leaders in the church. And it's called Build with Him. That's the name that the Holy Spirit gave me, because there's 2 different sides to the aisle. You have believers who think they're doing everything for God. Then you have the other side of the aisle that do life and business Monday to Saturday. They do their inoculation of God on Sunday, and then they go back to getting their teeth kicked in on Monday and don't know why. And so God's model for us has always been integration. To do nothing for Him, but everything with Him. And so I unofficially launched it within my Believers in Business community. I'm like on week 8 with them right now, but I'm officially piloting the first cohort this September at my home church, which is a church of a little over 4,000. And I've already got quite a few people that want me to come and administer it there. And so I just stewardship brick by brick. I'm rolling it out in my church, see what I learn, and go with the beta and then potentially roll it out. But ultimately, I think that this will be this is next for me. This is next.
That's amazing. That's awesome. I love the way that, you talked about integration, and I love the way that you've been doing that in your life. And now you found a way to integrate it right directly into the church.
Mm-hmm. Because here's the truth, Wade. You and I both know this, and it's not necessarily to anyone's fault, although in some cases it is. Most pastors are tasked with speaking to 80% of the congregation, which oftentimes are not the business leaders, entrepreneurs. They're not the apostolic gifting. They're not those folks. So then those of us who have entrepreneurial bones, CEO bones, all the things, we sit in a sermon and we hear it's harder for a rich man to get into heaven than it is for a camel to get through the eye of a needle. And out of context,
Right.
we go, what, this must be bad that I've got these resources. So then we try to write a bigger check to the church and hopefully we get into heaven one day. And it's like, that couldn't be what God intended for us. And so now, rather than make the pastor responsible for having those conversations, I've raised my hand to do just that for the Big C church at large. And so prayerful about where God will take this. But there's a big need, because part of the reason, going back to our original conversation, as to why so many people had this idea of money being evil is because believers, I believe, who have resources don't know how to steward and magnify and multiply their influence, because there's a separation, there's no integration. So I go kill it in the marketplace, I hide my faith. So now how do I, in a very organic way, step forward to show the world that believers win in business and be unapologetic about that?
Well, yeah, and then when you come back into the faith community, you hide your business success typically,
100%.
right? So
100%.
you know, it's schizophrenic in both places.
100%.
You know, there's so much here. There's so much here, and you know, I wish we could just go on. So we'll have to have you back. What I want to do now, before we conclude, is look at a couple of the audience comments. We don't have too much time. I also want to give you time to once again tell a little bit about the purpose to profits thing coming up. But let's take a look at a couple of the audience comments here that have come in. You know, going back early, thank you for pointing this out. Two-parent household, one of the most underrated and overlooked reason we have so many undisciplined kids out there. And you know, undisciplined, that's from yesteryear. Undisciplined, how are, you know, kids that are lacking certain components, right? Kids that haven't had the best foundation that they can have.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you had that. My own problems came through a divorce. My audience knows this. I was actually kidnapped as a child in a domestic kidnapping. My mother was awarded custody. My father didn't like that. Took me and my sisters, smuggled us out of the country. But he did it because she was an alcoholic. The marriage, you know, anyway, the point is it was a mess. And I took my son to work today. He got his first job. He's 15. And he's a courtesy clerk at Pick and Save, right?
Okay.
And he's just started. He's just learning the ropes. And I was talking to him today because we just heard that they had a big turnover here because some kids were dipping their hand into the till. You know, whether it was the clerks, the cashiers, or whatever, and they have cameras, you know. And so we were talking about obeying the laws, right? And I used the example of David. How I love thy law. Thy commands make me wiser than my foes. David, the famous king of Israel, studied God's law to understand it and how to apply it in life. And, you know, one of the most basic things is he created us to become one flesh, to stay together and raise our kids in that two-parent family. And it is tragic that there seems to be little weight and credence given to that. And I get we don't want to make people feel bad who don't have it or who won't able to pull it off. But when I was a pastor, I resigned years ago, but when I was a pastor, I used to not shy away from saying God hates divorce. I could speak to it from experience. God hates divorce. That's not a criticism or, you know, a shaming of anyone here. Just let's not think that this is a good, natural, normal thing. Everybody does it. It's all fine. God hates it for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. It's a covenant. And we saw what he did when covenants were broken in the Old Testament, right? And he's a guy that doesn't change his character. And so I agree wholeheartedly. I think there's a ton of evidence that shows that he hates divorce. And I'm let me first say I'm grateful that I lived in a two-parent household. I also, though, am sensitive to the fact that that isn't always a recipe for success either, though, right? When two people
Amen.
stay together for all the wrong reasons, I think that
Yeah.
can also do more damage to the family unit than benefit in some cases. And you know, I will say though, in my particular case, I'm grateful. I wouldn't have turned out the way that I did if I didn't have both of them in the household for sure. While I did have the best and worst parts of each of them, right? But it gave me a model, and I look at myself today, and I took the best parts of both of them. Is what's made me so effective in society and everything that I've done. So I agree with yesteryear. I think it's definitely overlooked, underrated, and it calls for a lot of undisciplined kids. And I think particularly just because it's harder to keep up with the kid when you're a single mom or dad for that matter, and you're scrambling trying to do your own thing. It's called a help me for a reason. The dynamic of having both helps balance things for sure.
Here's another one from earlier in the show when you were talking about the time when you became more fully committed. How
Mhm.
does one turn that around, not putting him first? I try all the time, says holy mustard, um, and find myself leaning on my own knowledge. I wish I could give up more often, but then at what point is not doing enough?
Yeah. Here's what putting him first really means, in my estimation, is being okay with getting a different answer than the one you've already given yourself. So I found myself having financial success, but still empty. I found myself having financial success, but still just having this unrest and no peace. And it was because I was operating his principle, sowing and reaping his principle. However, to everything, there's a time and a purpose under heaven, and everything is perfect in his timing, right? And so we can rush that process by leaning on our own knowledge and our own understanding, which is exactly the opposite of what the Bible tells us to do. And we'll produce some fruit, but we won't get to truly enjoy it. And so for me, if I'm honest, it, I got tired of do-overs. I was exhausted. You know how hard it is to be financially successful and then to still be miserable in the process? I was like, God, whatever this is, I don't want it. If you want me to go back to corporate, I'll do it. If you want me to start a church, I'll go. Whatever you want me to do. And it was in that moment when I finally surrendered with that posture that everything changed. And what he quickly showed me was it wasn't even that he didn't want me to do the things that I was doing. He just didn't want me to do them like that because he had a better way of doing them. And it wasn't until though that in my heart, I really said, I'm tired of doing it my way. I legitimately would do whatever you want me to do, and I don't care what it looks like.
That's in that sort of introductory comments. I think I read this: God's way, not the grind's way. You're talking about
Yes,
the grind's way. So to
yes,
unpack that a little bit for us.
yes. For 3 years now, I've taken a Sabbath every week, and I've gotten far more accomplished than I used to working 7 days.
Yeah.
It's it it wasn't an option for us, right? It was like, hey, the Sabbath, man wasn't made for the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made for man. And I gave you a model going back to Genesis. I didn't rest because I was tired. I was trying to give you a framework of how I want you to build.
Yeah.
And so I take Sabbaths, I take sabbaticals. Rest is a part of his recipe. And the truth of the matter is, the more that we trust him, the more that we'll do everything according to the way in which he designed and desired for us to do. And I was tested in that way. Like early on, at this time, I was buying a lot of apartment buildings, and my realtor all of a sudden would start sending me deals on Sundays, right?
Yeah.
So I peeked at a couple, but I didn't hit send. I didn't hit reply. And I promise you, this happened 3 different occasions. And each one of those deals I later got by foregoing and staying committed to and honoring God on my Sabbath.
It's the manna,
It
right?
is. It
You
is.
went and you could collect twice as much on Friday, but you didn't collect any on Saturday.
That's right. That's right.
And what you had Friday lasted through Saturday. Yeah. No, that's a powerful one.
I've got a saying, Wade, that you either trust God or you learn to trust him. Those are the only 2 options in life. You either trust him or you learn to trust him.
Well, and with God, right? The sad thing is, the funny thing is, you get the lesson is offered, and if you don't learn the lesson, you get the test, and then the lesson comes later.
Exactly.
So, but this was a big one, because I spent decades keeping the seventh-day Sabbath, literally, Friday night sundown and then we moved away from that, and I won't go into all the theology of why and how and what I was doing. But something was lost along the way, and I need to get back to that diligence and that separation. So thank you for that. Thank you for bringing that up for me and for reminding me. And it just hit me like a bolt of lightning. My kids, my family's suffering from that. That I don't make that distinction clear in our family and in our life.
I saw it. It was a compound effect of me not doing it, for sure. And I couldn't give them my best if I wasn't at my best.
Yeah. So there's a huge takeaway. Thank you. There was one more. Oh yeah. So here, I'm going to read 2 comments here real quick. Solomon and David were pretty well off. And of course, Solomon's kind of a warning. And part of the reason for me why I was anti-wealth was the preacher, right? Vanity is vanity, all is vanity, right? And Solomon, who went to excess and learned that lesson. So I was thinking early on, I wanted to be wise, and I just, I didn't want any of that, right? And I went to Europe with a one-way ticket and a suitcase to serve God. Whenever it was 12, sorry, I'm getting attacked by a large animal here. This is Licorice, my daughter's cat. So, however many years it was later, I crashed and burned. And then I realized I needed to provide for my family more thoroughly, more completely. And I charted course back towards that material benefit. But here's the one I want to maybe sort of end on here, because then somebody jumped in and said, don't forget Joseph.
Yeah. Can we go back though really quick to Solomon and David? Because I think something is grossly overlooked in that dynamic. We talk all about Solomon, which I love, right? Solomon is the man. Parts of him. You get my point. But we don't talk enough about how David set him up, though. The resources he had, the wisdom that he gave him. Wise man's good man leave an inheritance for his children. David set Solomon up to really take off. That's just that part. To me, that's a very important detail. That Solomon wasn't starting from scratch.
Yeah, that's really important. I won't even get into why it's important for me personally. That's powerful. I'm just loving this because I hear God speaking through you, and I'm loving it. I'm just loving it because he's bringing things to my attention. Thank you for that. Okay. This is one that I want to highlight. Joseph, to me, is such a powerful example because he served under Pharaoh, and Pharaoh put everything in his household under him. So he had to learn under this world's systems how to be a steward. And then he was the steward, right? He was the steward that saved the whole nation and his family from starvation in the famine by applying sound economic principles.
That's right. That's right. I still believe in Proverbs where it talks about the people curse the one who hoards the grain, but there's blessing on the head of the one who sells it. I still believe that that was written in reference to Joseph. And here's why. Because during the 7 years of famine, the text explicitly shows that Joseph wasn't doing charity. He was doing business. Business. So much so that after people ran out of money, land, and other things that they could give to Joseph in exchange for the grain, the text explicitly shows that they sold themselves into slavery to get grain from Joseph. And so it's just another reminder for us. God gave Joseph the vision. He gave him the plan. He gave him the framework. Hey, during these 7 years of plenty, getting while the getting is good. Be wise, store up. Not so that you can go and do charity during the 7 years of famine, but for you to go and do business during that time. And so I just say that because I think there's maybe a believer or two that still may be guilty or feel guilty about charging for services. We love Joseph, as we should, but we should also look at all the details of exactly how he operated with the vision and the wisdom that God gave him, along with the resources during that time.
Okay, now we're at time, but I'm going to have you back and do a whole show around that idea, if that's all right with you.
I would love to do it.
Because that I'd never heard that. I had never considered that or seen that, the connection of those two, and thinking about what I have talked about. I'm actually doing research on this right now. The saints in Jerusalem, right?
Mhm.
That sold everything and had everything in common. And this sounds like this wonderful nirvana. A few years later, you have Paul traveling around collecting money for the poor saints at Jerusalem.
Imagine that.
Yeah, there's no direct connection there. I've looked for it. There's no, but I'm telling you, right? So that's the other side of the Joseph thing that you just talked about.
That's deep, Wade. That's deep, man.
Because why? Because they were heedless and ignorant. They thought Jesus wasn't coming in their lifetime. They let go of material needs, right? And they did it with all the best reasons and all the, zeal and love and fellowship. They didn't do it for any of the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
But it was a wrong thing to do.
That's right.
In that way.
That's right. Man, that's good.
Well, I'm glad I was able to share a little bit with you because
man, that's good. You got me sitting on that one, man, because I literally just been going through Thessalonians in both books of Corinthians. So this is fresh for me, right? I just read that recently.
Don't run with it. Do a little research because it's not a completely new and original idea. But the jury's out, and so that provides opportunity for some speculation, but that must be done with the facts that we have in the basis. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So anyway, but it's my belief that it's exactly that's the reason they were poor, because they adopted a kind of communism, a spiritual communism. It doesn't work. Never has, never will. God intends us to have private property. And to, the parable of the talents illustrates that. And, everybody's shocked that the one that had the least had to give what he had to the one who had the most.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because God is a businessman, and he expects to ROI on anything he puts in our hands.
All right. Well, we're out of time. Please do tell us quickly about the purpose to profit.
Yeah.
Coming up, and how do people engage that? And I'll type something in the chat here to make sure it's documented.
For sure. So for anybody that would love to come, essentially, it's an event for anybody that wants to discover, develop, and deploy their gift. Okay. Or you already have existing coaching and consulting business that you want to refine it so that you could sell high ticket offers to a very specific avatar and have more money and more margin in your life. Okay. And we're going to show you on day 1 how to create that high ticket offer. Day 2, how to sell it one to many. Day 3, we're going to show you some more distribution methods for it. And then day 4, we're going to show you how to buy back your time and making meaningful money with margin. And then on day 5, we're going to show you 4 different pathways to 6-figure months. It is nothing like you've ever attended. I can promise you that. And if that not be true, we will give you your money back. Okay.
And where do people connect with this directly?
Purpose, the number 2, profitschallenge.com. Purpose, the number 2, profitschallenge.com. And Wade, I don't know where this will be posted, but maybe I could get you a link to put in the show notes as well.
Is that it right there?
Yep,
Did I spell it correctly?
you did.
There we go. So that link will now go out on all the channels,
Awesome.
and it's right there for anyone watching.
Okay.
Brian, thank you so much for your time. Any last words for the audience?
This has been amazing. First of all, this is the latest podcast I've ever done before, Wade. So thank you for that. This is a first for me. But no, this has really been cool. I didn't know what to expect. I just knew you were good people, and we've had some good conversation offline. And hopefully this was fruitful for those who experienced it. I love to hear the comments, good or bad, in the comment section. And yeah, just encouraging.
Would people also reach out to you here, or is there another email or something where people would want to get in touch with you personally?
Yeah, I'm an Instagram guy. So Brian Adamson official. If you reach out on Instagram, I love to talk to you. I'm always in the DM. So Brian Adamson official on Instagram.
Awesome. And I'll go ahead and post that here as well. Just make sure that I got that right as well. Is it 2 S's?
Yeah, 1 S.
I don't think I can edit it, but I'll do a new one. 1 S. Let's just do that. Okay. So Brian, thank you again. And I will be reaching out to make that offer to come on the show. And maybe we'll see you at this upcoming conference we'll be advertising it on this show in December in Orlando. Better Business, Better World. Brian, it's truly been an honor and a pleasure. I'm going to invite everyone to stay tuned for 2 more minutes to run the sneak peek of next show. And Brian, if you want to, I know it's really late, but if you want to hang, we can connect real briefly in the studio.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so everyone listening in, I hope you've enjoyed the show. And remember, you are created in the image of God, and God loves his creation. Here's what you can look forward to next week.
Next week on Created in the Image of God. Sunday, July 26th at 7 a.m. U.S. Central Time. Host Wade Franson interviews Richard Strilowich, corporate sage coach and leadership mentor. He reflects on treating work as a spiritual journey and how inner wisdom can shape the way we lead, serve, and grow. From purpose and authentic leadership to discovering God's presence in everyday work and life. And then on Tuesday, July 28th at 8 p.m. Central Time, host Wade Franson interviews Mark Galley, author, editor, and former editor-in-chief of Christianity Today. He explores faith, tradition, and the Christian life, reflecting on a journey that has shaped his understanding of worship, holiness, and the church. From theology and public witness to the enduring pursuit of truth, grace, and spiritual renewal. Join us live this week, Tuesday and Sunday, Created in the Image of God.